Yeah, this is Mr. Olive, and this is also for Miss Dickerson's class. This is going to be the last unit. We have three more lessons for Bio 2, and this will be the last unit. It's ecology. So at the end, there will be a few questions that you can answer the traditional way Miss Dickerson likes you to answer them, or you can just share your answers with me if you're in my class. Um, so for starters, what is ecology? It's the last thing we're going to be studying. This is the study of interactions between organisms and the living and non-living parts of their environment. So that's the definition of ecology. Why bother to study ecology? It delves into a lot of different fields, everything from the nursery, agriculture industry to environmentalist issues, fish and game, wildlife management, and urban development. But anyway, it helps us to understand what can live where and why. Which would be particularly important for the nursery industry. It's important to understand the potential consequences of our choices, humanity's choices, why we need to watch environmental issues, and it helps us to understand how we change the world when we unintentionally introduce new species. The picture down below is a zebra mussel, which is a invasive species in our area. Other reasons it's important to understand ecology. It helps us to understand the important role that different species play within their ecosystem and helps us to understand the indirect effect our choices have on the world. So even just the act of farming and how we use our land helps us value and treasure what we have, and it helps us to understand the direction that we are going um, in our world. So lots of different reasons to study ecology. So here's some key terms that we're going to see as we study ecology. One of the biggest is the biosphere, and this is just going to be the region above us in our atmosphere and all the way to the depths of the ocean, the deepest, most parts of the ocean that can sustain life. So obviously life can be sustained. Microbes can live below the soil. At the very bottom of the ocean, life can exist. And then up into our atmosphere ways, life can exist too. It's just that narrow slice is what's called the biosphere. Other terms that you're going to run into and see, one is an ecosystem. This is the living and non-living parts of a particular environment. So like in that picture that you see right there in front of you, it would include the trees, but also the air, the ice, the moss, the rocks, both the living and non-living parts. And then biomes, another term. These are very large ecosystems that are found throughout the world. Each biome would contain multiple ecosystems. Some of the popular, well-known biomes would be deserts, temperate forests like the ones you'd find here in Oregon with Doug firs or hardwood trees that get cold in the winter. Tropical rainforests that stay pretty close to, you know, the equator and pretty warm year round, at least during the daytime. Up at the top, the poles in Antarctica, at the bottom you've got icebergs and things like that. So that's going to be a different kind of biome. And even within the ocean, there are different biomes. You've got different regions that sustain life differently. So. Um, Communities, that's another term. So communities are defined as all the interacting organisms in a specific area, a given area. And the example of a community that I kind of pulled up here would be one from our region. The big species right there, the climax community would be that big white oak you see right in the middle, that big oak tree, and all the different animals that are dependent on it, from this tiny little tardigrade up here that would live in the moss to stellar jays, the parasitic mistletoe that grows on its branches, little roly-polies or peel bugs, isopods that live in it there, the big apex predator up there, the red-tailed hawk, and all those different things. Those are all the species that interact on a white oak tree, and the white oak tree sustains a community. Another term that you'll see in ecology is population, and that's when you're just focusing on one particular species. So one given species that happens to live in an area at a given time. Just might be a big bloom, well, or a migration of crabs like the one you see in the picture right there. And then, of course, an organism, that's just going to be a single member of that species. So focusing, zooming all the way in and focusing just on one critter or plant. A couple of terms also that are going to come up as we study. You're going to run into things called biotic factors. If you look just in an ecosystem, these are going to be the living components in an organism's environment. So all the plants, the animals, the parasites, the decomposers, the bacteria, everything alive. And then you've got abiotic factors. These are the non-living things, the availability of water, a forest fire, rock, weather patterns, gas, how much oxygen is in the air or not. These are all abiotic factors, non-living parts of an organism's environment. Another term that you're going to hear in ecology is niche. And if you think of a play, everything from the people that are doing the lighting and the music in a play to the leading role, everything has a niche. And this would be the same in an ecosystem. So whatever role animal, plant, fungus has in an ecosystem, that is its niche. Some of the different examples of niches, that some of the more obvious ones, and then some that you might not think of. One would be like a decomposer. So that's anything that breaks down organic matter so that it can get recycled back into the system. That's an example of a niche. So one of the terms that we use are generalists. These are things with broad niches. These are things that can tolerate a wide range of environments. So like the Norway rat that you see up there, that's found all throughout the world and for a reason. It can eat almost anything that it can find, and it can live in a wide variety of temperature ranges, and it's just really tough critter. Raccoons are definitely generalists too, and different kinds of lichens that can actually just grow on the face of a rock. These are also generalists. Then you've got specialist, and a specialist is really only geared up for one particular ecosystem. So, for example, the dependence that a panda bear has on bamboo, because that's its only, or even a koala bear on eucalyptus down in Australia. This particular butterfly, a monarch, is very dependent on the milkweed. So it's just got a very narrow, specific niche. Different types of interactions that you'll find in ecology. One of the more famous ones would be the predator-prey relationship. So here you see a lynx up in Canada, and you see a snowshoe hare. The lynx whole survival depends on the availability of snowshoe hare. So when you have years with lots of snowshoe hare, you're going to follow it with years with lots of lynx, and vice versa. Plant herbivore interactions, the way that different grazers graze, and the way that they try not to completely graze out one region. They roam, they browse, they make sure that one area isn't overgrazed. But the plant herbivore interactions that you find in an ecosystem are also relationships that are very, very big and studied often. Another relationship that you'll see in ecology is parasitism. So these are different organisms that don't necessarily kill another organism, but live off of it and drain resources from it. So the mistletoe that you see there on the left is an example of parasitism. Also those head lice that you see on your right. And we can think of other parasites too, tapeworms and fleas and all kinds of parasites that don't necessarily kill, but they do live off of other organisms. Different other kinds of relationships you'll see. Here you see mimicry on your left. You see a caterpillar in the tropics that resembles a snake, maybe even a poisonous snake, and basically says back off. So you'll see that. You'll also see the example on the right there. You see the viceroy butterfly, which mimics the not so tasty monarch butterfly. They look an awful lot alike, even though one could be eaten without giving a blue jay a tummy ache, and the other one just looks like it. So competition plays a big role in ecology and the study of ecology. You'll see plants competing for sunlight and water. You'll see coral competing for good feeding areas and trying to get up closer to the sun. You'll see in the intertidal zone, you'll see mussels or barnacles competing for space. So that they don't dehydrate, and also so that they can have food available when the tide washes back up. So competition plays a big role in ecology. Study of relationships, part of ecology. One of the example is mutualism. It's a symbiotic relationship that benefits both species. So on the left there you see the hippo that is feeding a carp simply by getting down under the water, and the carp just cleans it, and that feeds the carp, also benefits the hippo. The relationship between a pollinator and the flower that's being pollinated, that hummingbird will spread that trumpet plant's pollen to other flowers, but also gives it nectar. So, and then the lichen down there on the right, that's actually not a single organism, but two organisms living together, an algae and a moss that live together to form a lichen. So that's a symbiotic relationship as well. Another type of relationship is commensalism, and this is when one species doesn't really even hardly even notice the other one. It's not in any way hindered by the other one. So a couple of examples I came up with were just the types of fish that follow sharks. Pilot fish is the one there on the right, but they draft with the shark, so it cuts down on the it makes them more hydrodynamic as they follow the shark cutting through the water, and then also they'll eat the shark's feces, and they also benefit from the fact that nobody wants to mess with a shark. So the shark really doesn't benefit from them, but they sure benefit from the shark. A couple of phrases you'll see during this unit are species richness and species diversity. We'll try to get through to you how important it is to have species diversity, and how not to do things that damage species diversity in a particular ecosystem. If you look at these man-made systems on the left, you'll see that very little species diversity. Good for making a house look nice, or good for growing corn, but not necessarily a good thing for an ecosystem and having a rich number of species. Okay, so this first unit's about ready to wrap up. I'm just going to ask you some questions. You answer them, and we'll be done. We've got just a couple more minutes. Number one, who's your teacher, and what period do you have Bio 2? Number two, in which of these relationships do both species benefit? Would that be competition, mutualism, predation, or commensalism? You can come back to these questions if I'm going a little bit too quick. Question number three. What are three abiotic factors in this bat's limestone cave ecosystem? Would it be water access, ammonium, mosquitoes, roosting perches, oxygen, temperature, noise, moths, owls, a lethal fungus? What are three abiotic factors? Next question, number four. The shape of the bird's beak and the shape of the flower are the result of what type of relationship? We'll come back to that one too. Next question. The Sahara Desert can be one of the harshest places on the earth for life to exist. What is a desert? This is a saguaro cactus. Animals in America's Southwest depend on the saguaro for a lot of things. Pick one animal and describe its niche. So I showed a lot of different animals from this community. You just pick one and describe its niche. That's going to be the last question. What role does it play in that ecosystem? See if I can go back through these quickly as I can. Here's the first question. Or the second question. Here's the third question.